There is a pattern in your life that you cannot seem to escape no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you learn, no matter how many times you promise yourself that this time will be different, and it shows up in the same way every single time you meet someone new, and for a while everything feels different, they seem different, they treat you differently, they make you believe that maybe this time you finally got it right, but then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the familiar cracks begin to appear. The same distance, the same inconsistency, the same emotional unavailability, the same subtle cruelty disguised as honesty, and before you know it you are standing in the exact same place you have stood 100 times before, wondering why you keep choosing people who hurt you, why you keep falling for the same type, why you keep hoping someone will change when all the signs say they will not, and the answer is so much deeper than you imagine, because Carl Jung believed that we are not drawn to what is healthy, we are drawn to what is familiar, and this is the key to understanding why your heart keeps leading you to the same painful places. Jung suggested that our unconscious mind is powerfully attracted to patterns that mirror our earliest emotional experiences, even when those experiences were damaging, even when they left wounds that never fully healed, because familiarity feels like safety to the primitive parts of our brain, and safety, even when it is destructive, is easier to tolerate than the unknown territory of genuine love. This is why the cycle continues, and until you understand the shadow truth behind your choices, you will keep repeating it. Today I want to show you 3 reasons why you keep choosing the same painful people, and the second reason will cut deeper than you expect because it forces you to look at a part of yourself you have been avoiding your entire life. But before we get into those reasons, we need to understand something fundamental about human nature, because the answer is not as simple as bad luck or poor judgment. The answer lives in the unconscious mind, where your shadow self has been quietly making decisions for you without your awareness. And the first reason you keep choosing painful people is that you are unconsciously recreating your childhood wounds. Jung observed that the relationships we form in adulthood are often shaped by the emotional dynamics we experienced in our earliest years. If you grew up with a parent who was emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or conditional in their love, your nervous system learned to associate love with those very qualities, not because they were loving but because they were familiar. So when you meet someone who mirrors that familiar dynamic, your unconscious mind says this feels like home, even when home was a place where you never felt fully safe. This is why the kind person who shows up consistently and loves you without conditions can feel almost boring to you, and why the person who keeps you guessing feels magnetic, because your psyche confuses intensity with intimacy and chaos with passion. But here is the part that most people never realize: the person who triggers your deepest wounds is not your enemy, they are your teacher. They are showing you exactly where you need to heal, because the wound that attracts you to them is the same wound that keeps you trapped in the cycle, and until you face that wound, you will keep running toward people who activate it. And this brings us to the second reason, the one that will shock you, because it forces you to confront something you have been hiding from your entire life. You keep choosing painful people because you believe you deserve it. This is the deepest wound of all, beneath the surface of your conscious mind, buried under layers of self-protection and denial. There is a belief that you are fundamentally unworthy of genuine love. This belief was not born from nowhere, it was planted by the people who were supposed to protect you, by the words that were spoken and the words that were never spoken, by the rejection you internalized as proof that something was wrong with you. And this belief has been running your relationships your entire life, because when you believe you are unworthy, you will unconsciously seek out Partners who confirm that belief. You will choose people who cannot love you fully because that feels familiar to you. You will stay in relationships that diminish you because leaving would require you to believe you deserve more, and deep down you are not sure that you do. This is the shocking shadow truth that most people never face. You are not choosing bad partners because you are unlucky. You are choosing them because they align with the story you tell yourself about who you are. And Jung would recognize this as the shadow at work because the shadow contains everything we have rejected about ourselves, and when we reject our own worth we attract people who treat us as if we have none. This is why the same pattern keeps appearing in different bodies, because the problem is not them, the problem is the belief system operating beneath your awareness. And this brings us to the third reason, the most subtle and deceptive of all. You keep choosing painful people because you are protecting yourself from the terror of real love. Jung believed that genuine love requires the ego to surrender. It asks you to be vulnerable, to be seen, to be known. And for someone who has been hurt before, this feels less like a gift and more like a threat, because real love can break you in ways that toxic love cannot. Toxic love confirms your fears. It makes you feel safe in your familiar pain. It does not ask you to change, but real love asks you to become someone new. It asks you to heal, to trust, to let go of the armor you have worn for years, and that is terrifying. So your shadow self orchestrates a different path. It guides you toward people who will never truly love you, because that way you never have to risk being fully loved and potentially losing it. You never have to confront the belief that you are not enough. You never have to face the terror of vulnerability. Instead, you stay in the familiar pain. You call it love, and you keep wondering why it hurts. But here is the truth that can set you free. The cycle will not end until you bring your shadow into the light, until you acknowledge the belief that you are unworthy and trace it back to its origin, until you stop choosing partners based on what feels familiar and start choosing based on what feels healthy. This is not about blaming your past, it is about understanding it, and more importantly, it is about forgiving yourself for the patterns you have repeated, because you did not create them intentionally. They were survival strategies that outlived their usefulness. And Jung believed that the path toward wholeness requires us to face our shadows and to stop using other people as a way to avoid our own inner work. This is why the most important relationship you will ever have is not with another person, it is with yourself, because until you heal the belief that you are unworthy, you will keep attracting people who treat you as if you are. And I want you to think about something. For a moment, think about the last person who broke your heart and ask yourself honestly, what did they remind you of? What did their distance remind you of? What did their coldness remind you of? What did their inconsistency remind you of? And if you are honest, you will see that they were not the first person to treat you that way. They were just the latest version of an old story. And this is where the real healing begins, because once you recognize the pattern, you can begin to break it. And the first step is not to blame yourself for the choices you made, it is to understand why you made them and to forgive yourself for not knowing better, because you were doing the best you could with the tools you had. But now you have new tools. Now you have awareness. Now you have the ability to choose differently. And the second step is to sit with the discomfort that arises when love feels safe, because safe love will feel foreign to you at first. It will feel boring, it will feel like something is missing, and that is because your nervous system has been conditioned to expect chaos. But chaos is not passion, and intensity is not intimacy. And the third step is to start making choices that feel uncomfortable, to choose the kind person even when they feel boring, to stay in the relationship that feels stable even when it lacks drama, to trust someone who has not given you a reason to leave, and to believe that you are worthy of love not because you have earned it but because you exist. This is the deepest lesson of Jungian psychology. The integration of the shadow is the path to wholeness, and wholeness is the foundation of healthy love. When you integrate the parts of yourself that believe you are unworthy, when you heal the wound that expects Rejection. When you release the fear of being fully seen, you stop being drawn to people who can only give you fragments of love, and you become capable of receiving love that is whole. And I know this is not easy. I know it is painful to look at the parts of yourself you have been hiding from. I know it is uncomfortable to admit that you have been choosing people who hurt you because a part of you believed you deserved it. But I also know that on the other side of that discomfort is freedom, because the love that waits for you on the other side of your shadow is not the love that hurts. It is the love that heals. It is not the love that keeps you small. It is the love that sets you free. And when you finally stop choosing painful people, you will realize that you were never broken. You were just wounded, and wounds can heal, and patterns can break, and cycles can end, and you can finally allow yourself to receive the love you have always deserved, while also recognizing that ultimate guidance and strength come from God, because every heart, every connection, and every moment of our lives exists within His knowledge and wisdom. So I want to leave you with a question: what would change if you believed you were worthy of love exactly as you are? Not someday when you are healed, not when you are perfect, but right now in this very moment, because the cycle can end. It does not have to be your story forever. You have the power to choose differently, and that choice begins with the decision to face the shadow truth, to stop running from what you fear, and to finally allow yourself to receive the love you have always deserved. If this message resonated with you, share it with someone who might be fighting their own painful cycle, because sometimes the right words at the right time can change everything. And if you are ready to continue this journey of self-discovery, subscribe to Winds of Thought and turn on notifications, because the deepest truths about ourselves are rarely found on the surface. They are discovered when we have the courage to look within and understand the hidden parts of who we truly are. And when you finally see those hidden parts, you will understand that the people who hurt you were never the problem. They were just mirrors reflecting the parts of yourself you had not yet learned to love. And when you learn to love those parts, you will stop attracting people who cannot love you, because you will finally know what love is supposed to feel like, and you will never settle for less again. And that is the beginning of a new story, one where you are not a victim of your past, but the author of your future, and that story starts today.